Welcome back to Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today, once again, delighted to be joined by Kevin McCluskey. Kevin, you were here on Wednesday night. You were on the match day coverage on Wednesday night, so tremendous viewing, I've got to say. Have you come back down to earth yet?
Not quite, no. I don't think I will until kickoff today, but it's been a great last couple of days, just revelling in that performance.
I'm watching it back. I mean, I seen somebody on Twitter saying that they had watched it 7 times, and I had a wee laugh to myself, because it is one of the ones where, I don't know how often Van Bronckhorst has watched it back, but in those 7 re-watches of that Celtic fan, I'm pretty sure at no point did he think, well, Rangers really got a grip of that game after 25 minutes. What was your thoughts on those comments?
I don't know where he's coming from them. I think that's probably the comments of a manager that's got to say something to try and get support back in his side, because, well, I haven't watched it back 7 times. I have seen it since the live watching, but for me, the first 25 minutes, we totally blew them away. Mm-hmm. We dialed it down a little bit. We only played at like 100 miles an hour for the next 10 minutes. Then we picked it back up again, blew them away in the last 5-10 minutes of the half. And the second half was just perfect game management. At no point in that second half were they actually in control of it. They might have had more of the ball, but there was no threat.
I totally agree with that, because I think that in the second half, we were controlling, but we still had a gear. Now, I mean, I don't subscribe to the fact that we completely ran out of steam. I really don't. I just think that it got to the point, I think maybe Big Giacomakis probably done enough running for the day and his night was over, and everybody applauded his input, because he certainly put in a shift, and it's obviously good to see him lining up today as well. We'll run through the lineup. But I just felt it was maybe the first time that I was under the impression that we could have stepped up if we had to. Obviously, we didn't have to. I'm watching the game on Sky Sports today to my left, and once again, and I'm going to bring this up because we spoke about it on Friday, Chris Boyd is one of the main heads. He's one of the talking heads on the Sky Sports programme. We're going to come back to some of the comments he's made, and then basically the whitewashing of the comments by him and others, absolutely ridiculous when you bring into consideration the already serious nature of Callum McGregor's injury. But what I love about the aftermath, right, and a lot of this is basically down to fans, and I don't have a clue who Tam Selleck is, or Tam Selleck's son, sorry, but there's some Twitter users out there, Kevin, right, who just keep you going for days and days after a brilliant victory, where, just the crack, but also the video footage that they're able to pull together. I'm not quite sure about the animation one. I'm sure we've all seen that. But obviously, we look at these things after the event, but some of the clips that I've seen in and around the performance, the captain's performance of Callum McGregor, going right into when they're warming up. I mean, I'm so far away from the park, I can't see things in that intricate detail, mate. Add to the fact that I'm half blind at the best of times. So I didn't see McGregor in the way that he was kind of rallying the troops in the warm-up. And then there was a few other things. I didn't see the comments he made to their left back at that point. And I also didn't see him getting the guys to calm down at the end of the game. But that all kind of filters out, and that's the kind of stuff I've been enjoying. What a captain's performance, Kevin, on Wednesday night.
Aye, it was unreal. It really was. Like you said that to Laura in the pre-match, just having him in the team, seeing him in the starting 11 was going to be a major boost to everyone. The players, to get the captain back, that kind of control and influence in the midfield, the fans, to see that he was back when we're not expecting him, and we've got that worry over who's going to be the number 6. Mm-hmm. And then the performance that he put in was exactly what you want from a captain in that big game. And I'm like you, watching the game, I missed a lot of things that maybe go on when you see them live. I didn't notice some of the things in replays because I was too busy celebrating the goals, for example. And then obviously doing the halftime and post-match, I don't see the analysis in the TV. So I missed a lot of it, and I'm relying on these Twitter clips as well. And that is what kind of gets you going and keeps those wins alive for the next few days. And you really see that McGregor's grown into the role of being a captain in this season. Because I think as well, we were all looking at the start going, McGregor's probably the obvious choice, but is he actually ready for it? Well, that game just totally proved that he is.
Aye, without a doubt. I mean, I remember the conversations, and they're out there on the previous episodes of Acsom around about the leadership. Because last season, Kevin, we didn't have the leaders that we needed. It was a situation where we needed a few players to really step up in terms of leadership and grab that season back and take ownership of the season. And I didn't see it happening. And I remember at the beginning of the season, I was looking at guys like Chris Ayer, who I thought had some leadership qualities. We knew that Scott Brown was leaving. The obvious choice was, Callum McGregor, because if you were to put the experience of McGregor and Forrest together and say, right, which one's your captain, you're going to go for Callum McGregor every single time. I don't think Forrest has that in his nature, although officially he was a vice captain at the beginning of the season. We've seen the armband given to Beaton, and we've seen it passed to Joe Hart, if somebody's coming off, as McGregor had to come off, obviously, when his face was injured. So when you're watching these things and him growing into that role as a captain, I think back to him breaking into the squad. Twitter is a funny wee place. Somebody actually commented on a tweet I made 8 years ago about Callum McGregor.
Yeah,
because
I saw that during the week.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
It was, I think, after his debut under Ronnie Dyler.
Mm-hmm.
And I had complimented Ronnie for playing young Callum at the time. And for some strange reason, it was commented on 8 years later. So I think the point is I do get things right once every 8 years, Kev. So I'm looking forward to my next one, right? But the thing with Callum, it comes in, we all know the story. He's went away. He's taken a loan deal that could quite easily have turned into a permanent move away from the club. And he's taken ownership of that. He's come back in very much like what Ryan Christie did at Aberdeen, Chris Ayer at Kilmarnock. But if you go further back, and this is relevant to Wednesday night as well, the excellent images of guys like McGregor when they're ball boys, Kevin, you go right back to the moments where, they're in at the club, and part of that process is to get the opportunity to be a ball boy. And there he is celebrating. And there was a wee bit of a furore over the Celtic boys, the ball boys rather, on Wednesday night, and their reaction to it. And Jim and I kind of disagreed on Friday. And he was thinking, we need to be more professional than that. Again, I've seen the funny side of it, and it was like, every advantage. We've got to grounds this year where people, the balls are getting thrown away from us, not just by the ball boys, but, if it's ever in the crowd and all this kind of stuff. And we've heard stories in the past about ball boys getting paid at Hampden by Rangers to, quickly give the ball back to Rangers, delay it. If Rangers are winning, delay it and getting it back to the Celtic players and all that kind of nonsense. Is it not just gamesmanship? Can we not just see that for what it is, a wee bit of humour?
Exactly, yeah, that kind of thing is. It goes on everywhere, in every game it's gamesmanship. If you're lowering yourself to kind of complaining about that, then I think you've got to look elsewhere for where your problems lie. A ball boy delaying giving the ball back by 2 or 3 seconds is not the reason why Rangers were 3-0 down at half-time.
No. And the reason that we're down is what we've been talking about all season. We've heard it being referred to, but thankfully people have stopped referring to it as Ange Ball. Our very own Tony described it as rip-roaring, free-scoring, never boring, which is like the vintage Celtic style of old. I had a discussion again on social media with a Man U fan all around the Porto side that Jose Mourinho managed to the Champions League. And I was speaking, obviously, about the UEFA Cup final, and I just said, there's a lot of Celtic fans I've spoken to who are not fans of that team. And it wasn't because we got beat. And to try and get that over to them, that it was the style and the manner in which they won that game. And obviously we have that. And this is a romanticised version, I guess, Kevin, of the style, the Celtic way, as it was called. You had the Liverpool way. We've now got the Celtic way, which obviously the actual pathway leading up to the stadium has now been named. And, there was again a discussion near the end of the week. It's great to watch the free-flowing football, but isn't the Celtic way to win and to be successful and to win honours?
It is, yeah. But I mean, for me, the Celtic way is going out and playing fast, attacking, attractive football that leads to wins. It is the way that Ange wants to play the game. I think that's potentially one of the reasons why we went for him. If you've got to give the board a bit of credit that they actually did scope him out and do the research, his philosophy in the game is that romanticised way that we see Celtic playing the game. It's attacking, it's on the front foot, it's relentless football.
Relentless. Yeah, that's a good word. And again, we quoted him. We don't stop. We never stop. And that's been on my mind all week because it is relentless, you know. And I think going back to when Ange came in and listening to the chat prior to seeing a ball kicked, I also referred to some previous managers who had come in and been speaking about style. And it was managers such as, you know, John Barnes spoke about the style of play. Ronnie Dyler, it was all around the style of play that he was going to implement. And Tony Mowbray actually spoke about the football utopia that he was aiming for. And obviously, through those three particularly, only one was a success in Ronnie. And we were looking at Ange and thinking, well, let's hope it's substance over style. And I think that he has got the right balance now. I mean, that on Wednesday night, I mean, to watch, I know that, for example, Matt O'Reilly was part of the press conference that we were in for the pre-match for the Motherwell game. And just about everybody was trying to get a sense of how that affected a brand new player who's maybe used to playing to capacity crowds at 8 to 10,000 to walk into that cauldron of absolute noise. And what was unique about it, of course, on Wednesday was it was completely a Celtic environment. And I think he was quite, you know, he played it down a bit. He said, you know, it was obviously an incredible experience. He's glad that he's had that experience. But I guess that, you know, and I've spoken to some guys and asked them the question, that once they're on and the whistle blows, you have, to a degree, you've got to feed off it. Of course you do, but you've also got to try and concentrate and focus on the task in hand. And I think that Ange has got his team playing particularly to the style and the blueprint that he mapped out at the very beginning. Did you ever have any doubts that this moment would come, Kevin?
I don't think, well, I didn't have any doubts that this moment would come. I doubted whether it would come this early, I suppose would be the way to say that. I think I've kind of always been someone that's had that trust the process with Ange, because, yeah, he came in, he was largely unknown to a lot of us here in Europe, but he spoke a good game. There's respected managers across the world, for example, Guardiola came out and said that when he played against him, he was coaching in Japan. I actually forget the team he was managing, but he said that they played one of the kind of the best games that they'd ever had against a Man City team. You know, his style was something that you could believe in and you could buy into. We watched that famous training video where he said he's got the, you know, we never stop. And there was a lot of good things coming out from him. So for me, I just wanted to believe in him. I suppose in the early days, you've got to trust that process. I like the fact that he was unwavering in his beliefs and how the game should be played. And I think Kev Graham's touched on this kind of more eloquently than I will, but he's kind of said that those first few games when we ran up this 6-0 victories were false games, because that wasn't us playing true Ange ball the way that Ange wants us to play. That was still us getting used to it. Now that we've actually got 6 months of playing under him, the players understand the roles within the team now. You can see there's a lot more understanding in terms of positional sense where they have to be. The little triangles that we're playing now on both flanks, getting in behind. You know, the improvements have been massive and they've been huge, and they've come a lot earlier than I'd expected. So, I mean, yeah, I didn't expect us to be top of the league at the start of February, maybe by the end of May. But never did I actually doubt that he would be a success. So I've now just got to hope that over the next 3 months he keeps that going.
You know, the thing as well, though, Kevin, when you look at even pre-Celtic, the interviews he's done, the people who are speaking about him, you know, be that players, fellow coaches, even guys he played with who've seen something in Ange Postecoglou in those early days that has come to fruition. You get the sense, or do you get the sense rather, that Ange believed he could, regardless of the situation he walked in, I get the sense certainly that he believed he could win the league this season. And
100%.
I don't think he would never say it, but you do get the sense that he's got that self-belief, don't you?
You do, and it comes through in every single interview that he does. he believes in himself. He believes in the process. And he's said that in kind of every job he's been to. The first season has been a rebuild, and it's not always been successful. But he knows coming to Celtic, he has to be a success from season one, and he has been already because he's won the League Cup. He's rebuilt a squad and made us from a deficit of 25 points last season to being top of the league now. The turnaround has been incredible, and he totally believes in himself. I think. And I think as well, that's the key difference between him and those other three that you mentioned, Barnes, Mowbray, Dyler, who all came in and spoke of the style of football that they wanted to impose on them. I don't know if they ever truly believed that they could do it. Whereas Postecoglou 100% does. And he shows it, as I say, in every single interview. You can't help but coming away feeling positive. Even after the earlier defeats, he still gave you something to cling on to, that it's going to be okay. He'll get this turned around.
This is the thing. You look back at I guess you would describe them as the darkest moments in this era, getting knocked out of the qualifier, and he is posed with the question about this catastrophic scenario that he was in. And, he wasn't having it. Even then, he wasn't having it. And that was in the emotion of the 1 hour after getting knocked out of the Champions League. He wasn't taking it. And I think that the big thing, that a big discussion point, has been the way that he's dealt with the media. The Scottish media, who I guess have a job on their hands in trying to peel a few layers back on the old Ange Postecoglou. But I've got to say, our very own Tony Haggerty did very well in the pre-match, and we shouldn't really expect any less for Tony, because that's what he's been doing. It's been his bread and butter for a couple of decades. But even he got a wee smile at Ange Postecoglou with a couple of his questions, so I was delighted with that. For anyone who hasn't seen the team yet, it's Joe Hart in goals, Tony Ralston at right back, with Cameron Carter-Vickers and Starfelt in the centre of defence, and Greg Taylor at left back. What a game he had as well on Wednesday night. Now, we need to have a wee think about where everybody's going to be playing here when we move into the midfield and up top. So we've got Callum McGregor, Hatate and Rogic playing in the midfield. We've got Abada, Maeda and Giakoumakis. So I'm thinking Maeda on the left. Is that the way we're going to be lining up here, do you think, Kevin?
That's how I would see it, yeah. I don't think you can move Abada from the right. He's been dynamite there in the last couple of games, getting his couple of goals, and he'll be flying. His performances have been excellent. So yeah, can't move him. Giakoumakis is a centre forward. You're not going to get anything from him if you put him out in the wings. And then that leaves Maeda on the left. Looking forward to seeing how he does today. It's a big game for him to come into. He's got big shoes to fill coming in for Jota. But it'd be interesting. I'd like to see him kind of get an isolated one-on-one against O'Donnell, probably at right back, because he's got pace to burn, and if we can isolate him, then I think we can get him behind quite regularly there.
I was looking at that game the other night when Maeda's warming up, and every time he came, to our area behind the goals, he's getting the standing ovation. And I think the fans were looking at him as if to say, here's a guy who just cuts through all the nonsense. He's jumped on a plane after a long haul flight, having played, albeit only for 20 minutes, on the Monday. Very little time to recuperate, no complaints. And you've seen him even in his warm-up where he's doing the sprints behind the goal, and the sharpness of him, Kevin. And you think to yourself, wow, that's a type of player that I want to see playing for Celtic, because we have had, even in the kind of hither end of the 9 in a row era and last season, the aftermath, we've seen players who maybe didn't have that same level of commitment. And I think that when Ange Postecoglou speaks about signing the character, the personality, and looking at the makeup of the man before or alongside the ability of the player, that's what excites me. I mean, Rio Hatate, right? We'll go on and on about his ability. Kyogo will go on about his ability. But then you start looking at how they conduct themselves as well, Kevin. And I think that we've got someone like that as well in Maeda, totally getting on about his business, taking care of business. All right, I've jumped off a long haul flight, but I'm still prepared to play. And I guess even if he was picked to start on Wednesday night, he would have approached that in the same kind of way. So I'm delighted that he's starting tonight. But how happy are you that in relation to their ability but in terms of the characteristics.
Yeah, I think again that's part of Ange, as you say, his signing philosophy. It's not just about the ability of the player in the park; it's what he can bring all round. Joe Hart's probably the best example of that. He's come in and, again, probably a lot of people were unsure of him as a signing. As you know, he'd had a couple of dodgy seasons, or certainly hadn't played a lot of football in the last couple of years down south, and it was the wonder of whether he was past it. Is he just coming for the money? Within 30 seconds of his first interview, he's totally dispelled that, and you could see that he got what it meant to play for Celtic. He was loving the fact that a big club like Celtic had come in and signed him, and pretty much every signing since then has followed that same pattern of it's a good player that's come in, but also it seems like it's a good person, it's a good character that's come in. O'Reilly's another one. I've listened to his interviews so far, and he talks very well. He understands the game. He understands what his career path is going to be. Probably he's got it planned out, and he knows how he's going to get to the top. And Maeda, is just to kind of go back on him, exactly the same. Who else that we've had as a centre forward in the last couple of years would have had that level of commitment? He's got no what's the word I'm looking for here? There's no expectation on him to do that. I would say he could easily have said, "Look, I played a game yesterday. I've taken a 12-hour flight or whatever it is back from Japan. I'm tired. I'm not available to play." But he's not. He's willing to kind of go that extra yard. He's running through walls in a sense already for us. And you've got to love that.
Absolutely. I mean, without pinpointing players, I'm going to pinpoint a few players. Boyata, the AEK Athens debacle, right? Further back, Inverness Cali, with a player of immense talent in Mark Viduka taking his boots off, refusing to come out for the second half. Last season, a couple of players kind of swanning about the park, and then all of a sudden you see them playing for the teams that they're signed for in England, and they've been supercharged. That is the kind of player that I was looking at and thinking, we are part of the modern football. It gets called the beautiful game, and for loads of different reasons, it's quite an ugly game at times, and we've seen that come into the fore over the last few weeks, completely non-footballing reasons. But a lot of the issues I've got with the modern game, Kevin, is that, we still look upon our club as being different, unique, and to wear that jersey and to understand what it means has to be understood. And when a player appears not to appreciate that, it's really frustrating. And it brings home, once again, the fact that we are part of this modern football, that we can't say that modern football is this and that. We're not part of it. Of course we are. If Celtic got an opportunity to leave Scottish football and join one of these big leagues that sometimes we look at and think, I'm delighted that we're not part of that circus, that the club would still join a league like that, and that is something that brings it home. So when you see these guys approaching it in that way, it also brings back two things from the presser. Matt O'Reilly spoke about the Rangers game, and after, complimenting the Celtic fans and going on about the experience, he basically says, but really, once it comes down to it, it's just another game. And I was thinking, that's Ange. That is Ange, isn't it? Like drilling that into them,
I love that attitude. I love that attitude.
It's another 3 points.
As fans, we're totally going to get carried away with that, and it's the biggest game in the season for us. But it is only 3 points. At the end of the day, we don't get 6 points for winning that game. We only get the 3, and we'll get no points for losing today if we lose. And then Wednesday's game it loses some of that importance of the win.
Yeah,
so it is. It's just another game, and it's certainly in the aftermath. That's how you've got to look at it.
Yeah. Enjoy it in the moment.
Absolutely. I don't want to get any comments here of me saying that I'm not taking that game as the biggest game. But in the aftermath, it certainly is. It's just another game. It's another 3 points. It's like as Ange says, he doesn't want to be top of the table now in February. He wants to be top at the end of May.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that's just another 3 points in getting us there.
Absolutely. The example I used on Friday with Laura. On the Friday Bulletin was 2011, where we beat Rangers 3-0 at Celtic Park. It was brilliant. Beautiful day that day. The place was absolutely bouncing. Commons scores the third goal that kind of swerves left and right past. And, we beat them at a canter, and it could have been a lot more than 3, but we went to Fir Park after that, and they beat us 2-0. And that it was almost like I was the prophet of doom there on Friday by bringing that up. It's not like I'm saying you better watch that doesn't happen today, but it is all about, like you say, refocus, regroup after a massive victory like that. I'm conscious of the fact that I've not brought in too many of the comments. So thanks everybody for joining us. You are commenting on the socials, and here we have Tony Daverin on YouTube. We need a ball boy way. Well, I was talking about some of the famous ball boys of the past. Jimmy Johnston, there's a great picture of him hugging whoever the other ball boy is. I wonder who it is, actually. And I remember Sean Fallon saying that you used to stand behind the goal doing keep you up and dribbling about. And they were looking at this young kid with the curly red hair thinking, who is this boy? And then you've got Andy Lynch, who was the ball boy in the 1965 Scottish Cup final. The first player to kick the ball after Billy McNeil headed it into the net was Andy Lynch, who eventually captained the side himself. So I think that the ball boy issue really isn't an issue, is it? Matthew Granger, how good would a GG hat-trick be today? The reason I'm bringing this up is because I've given him a bit of stick after his performances. A couple of the performances that he's had this season, I've given him a wee bit of stick. And I look at the game on Wednesday night, and I think he gave us everything you would ask for. I mean, listen, he had 3 chances, 3 excellent saves by McGregor. He deserved a goal. He deserved the goal on Wednesday night. And his work rate was tremendous. And he actually ran the Rangers defence ragged because he was doing a lot of that kind of unseen work, Kevin, off the ball, closing down the defenders, making them play the pass quicker than they want to play it, closing down all the space. He done all the dirty work. And I think he won a lot of new fans on Wednesday night, didn't he?
I think he did, yeah. And I think I need to hold my hands up to that one as well, because at the half-time I was more focusing on his 3 misses than actually the rest of the work that he was putting in. I'll stand by my comments. I feel that he should have scored at least one of those chances. And if he wants to make it as a top striker with Celtic, he needs to be beating a top keeper like McGregor. So I feel like he should have scored at least one. But I probably was a bit harsh because I hadn't really commented or noticed all that other work he was doing. Mm-hmm. And again, this is kind of the benefit of hindsight, maybe rewatching a game, looking at those videos that get posted on Twitter, and you actually see his movement was brilliant, especially for the third goal. I think it's Goldson. He just pulls towards the front post and leaves the space in behind for Abada. And he was doing that all night. He was pulling their defenders everywhere. He stood up to the physical challenge, which he did against Hearts as well. So maybe my perspective of him is changing and thinking, say maybe he didn't score, but is he a big game centre forward? Does he enjoy more of that physical challenge?
He seems to thrive in it. Yeah.
He does, yeah. So maybe playing against a more lightweight defence, he's not going to be as impactful. But when it comes to a physical, rough and tumble game, he can give it as much as he'll get. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he really could be that extra option up front that we haven't had.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at the lineup today, if he's able to create the spaces for Abada and Maeda, I mean, with the pace that the pair of them have got, Abada's really coming into his own now in the last few weeks. I want to bring up this point from Jungle Line, a long-time viewer of a Celtic State of Mind. Welcome to the show, sir. That's why you let the manager sign players and not boardroom people. Mm-hmm. Listen, that's a brilliant point, because see, over the last few years, we'll never know who signed who, but there's certain players you're looking at, you think, come on, the manager that played no part at all in bringing that player in, and how are you going to make them fit? Unless it's an exceptional talent, how are you going to make them fit your system? Mm-hmm. We're almost, kickoff's almost upon us. And another thing I wanted to mention was the quality of today's bench. Obviously, there's been a few changes, Kevin, but it's allowed us to have a bench of Bain, Beaton, McCarthy, Jota, Mikey Johnston's back, O'Reilly, Forrest, Welsh, Juranovic. Strongest bench of the season, I think. I
would think so. You've got Juranovic, who could arguably man of the match on Wednesday night if it wasn't for Hatate getting his double. Jota, who's the best player in the country, on the bench. James A. Forrest, who's a quality player in his day. O'Reilly, fantastic in his 3 games so far. I mean, for the first time this season, we're now in a spell where if we need to look to the bench to bring someone on to change the game, there's 3 or 4 players straight away that can do that.
Mm-hmm. So I know, and we've not had it. We've simply not had it. No. We're about to kick off. There's a few things I want to mention before we do that. We'll come back to Chris Boyd probably at half-time or full-time. Tommy Boyd, The Celtic wiki has him signing on the 2nd of Feb, but the Celtic Twitter page reckons it was today that he signed, all those years ago in the early 90s when it wasn't so fruitful as it is today. And of course, his two of his former clubs are playing today. So big shout out to Tom, one of the nicest guys I've ever met in the world of Celtic. And also a big shout out for the family, the friends and family, Davy Catanack. Davy was a hugely inspirational and influential figure of the Quality Street gang. And he sadly passed away on Friday after a short illness. So thoughts and prayers with everyone who knew Davy. That was another gentleman, and I'll talk a wee bit later about Davy Cat. The game is underway, so please join us at half-time. Thanks everybody for getting involved, and thank you to Kevin McCluskey for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.